You are watching Books, Booze, and Horror Reviews. Welcome to my channel. So the book that we're talking about today is something that I've touched on before, but I feel like it deserves a bit more of a discussion. So like many other horror book fans, I am a fan of Stephen King. Not every single work, but I do love his stuff, especially the stuff from the late 70s, like early 80s type stuff, like the really dark horror that he wrote. And of those darker books, there was just one that always really stood out to me and just seemed more dark and scary than some of the other ones, and it always just kind of made me stop and wonder why. Today, we're talking about Pet Sematary. Today, I'm going to be pairing this with a corpse reviver cocktail. These are so good. I love to make these, and I mean, it's a corpse reviver cocktail for Pet Sematary. I don't know about you, but I can't think of a better drink to pair this with. Drink up, bitches. I love corpse revivers. So, as many of you know, Pet Sematary follows our main protagonist, Louis Creed, his wife, Rachel, and their two lovely children as they are, say it with me, class, moving into a new house. It's a trope that's used so often, and God help me, I am here for it every single time. As the family gets settled in and starts to check out their new digs, they meet their kindly neighbor, Judd, who's an older man and also knows a thing or two about the area. We quickly find that there's an interesting looking path near the Creeds' house, and Judd offers to take him for a walk down there and check it out. Well, it turns out that the place is a very old pet cemetery where the area youth go to lay their beloved pets to rest. However, there's a lot more to the area than meets the eye. Beyond the pet cemetery, there's an evil and sinister place where no man dares to dwell, and that place has some plans for Louis and his family. Next thing we know, the family is suddenly surrounded by tragedy of varying degrees. They're being forced to have these very difficult conversations with their kids about life and death, dredging up old and painful memories, and eventually having to make decisions that prove to be life-changing. So, what is it about Pet Sematary, the book, that makes it stand out and makes it feel darker than some of Stephen King's other works? Before I go on, I'm just going to let you know that I'm going to be doing a lot of comparisons between the book and the movie. The original 1989 movie, not the remake. The remake was dog crap and completely missed the point. So even though the movie, of course, was not an exact replica of the book, I feel like it captured the mood so well. You know, in the beginning, it's sunny, we're happy, we're hopeful, we're laughing. And then as soon as that first death hits, you know, it's autumn, it's overcast, and, you know, the air is chill and unforgiving. So you already have just the environmental, you know, sort of atmosphere. And then from then on, it just feels like death is in the air constantly. The mood changes, and we're having to explain to poor, fragile young children, you know, what death means, and breaking their little hearts and basically changing them forever. And that's the thing that gets you about this book. You could face 1,000 monsters, 1,000 demons, but when a loved one is taken from you, especially when it's in a sudden and horrific fashion, that's where the true horror lies. You lose a life that you were trying to save, it completely shakes up your world. You lose a friend, it breaks your heart. You lose a close family member, loved one, spouse, child, it crushes your soul. And I mean, think about it. There's only one actual ghost who, in theory, on paper, should be scary. You know, he definitely looks the part. You know, he looks exactly as he did when he died. But he's the good guy. He's the one voice of reason. He's the one comforting presence. And in this book, Stephen King gives you a front row seat to the kind of crushing, bone-breaking grief that causes one to completely lose their soul, their mind, their humanity. So we're in Louis Creed's point of view, so we see firsthand where his mind is. We see it breaking, and we're watching him slowly descend into complete and utter madness. So when you really see that state of mind, it's easier to kind of see why he's making these horrible decisions over and over and over. Like he doesn't have reason anymore. He's completely being guided by his grief. So one interesting thing that wasn't really touched on too much in the movies was that when the dead do come back in the book, they're not necessarily these zombified, empty shells. No, these are lucid, evil, demonic beings. When Judd tells the story about the man who lost his son to war and wound up burying him in that burial ground, when the son came back, he was able to speak perfectly and tell Judd and all of his friends all of the terrible things from their past that they had done that he could not possibly know. Gage, when he came back after Lewis buried him, he was able to do the same thing. He was talking he was talking like an adult and saying these things, these horrible things, and confronting Judd, with things that he couldn't possibly know. He was basically a demon. With Gage, they kind of touched on that in the movies. You can very much tell after he comes back in the movie, he's speaking a lot more clearly. He's using complete sentences, whereas before it was more baby babble. So it kind of acknowledged it in the movie, but not to the extent, that it really went in the book. And then finally, in the book, they talk about the Wendigo, and they imply that it is actually what is behind the evil of that dark, dark place, and what is behind the reanimation of those corpses and making them into those evil, cannibalistic things that they are. For me personally, that makes a difference just because I really don't know a lot about the Wendigo. I know a little bit, but that lore is something that is unfamiliar to me. And with something's unfamiliar, I don't know, what it wants, what can hurt it, if it could possibly be hurt. The unknown, the unfamiliar is something I feel just kind of adds to the horror. So obviously that was left out of the movie, and I'm personally not mad at that. I thought it was fine how it was. I mean, just because the movie's among one of my favorites, right? I watch it every single year around Halloween. I saw the movie before I ever read the book, so it could be biased on my part. But I thought it was enough just to kind of have it be just inherently evil. Something happened way back then that we don't know about. The ground became sour, and it just became an abomination within itself. I thought the actor who played Louis Creed, I can't remember his name, don't make me think about it, but I thought he did a good job of conveying, his descent into madness the best that he could, in the short amount of time that he had. And honestly, his reaction, the whole scene with Gage, the one, gets me every freaking time. And there you have it. You end up with a book that's not necessarily about the scary things that cause death, or even about death itself, but about the worst part of all, which is the grief and hopelessness that follow. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me. Obviously, this is one of my favorites, both the book and the movie. I love talking about it. I could go on all day if I could. But, shoot me a comment. Let me know what you think, if you like it. Even if you don't, let's be respectful. Let's exchange opinions and tell me what you like. But that's all I got for today. So until next time, cheers.